the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives say the impeachment of President Trump does not make a subpoena issued to White House counsel Don McGahn moot. In a filing to a federal appeals court, the House argues the Judiciary Committee still has an interest in hearing from McGahn about events described in special counsel Robert Mueller's Russia report, writing if McGahn's testimony produces new evidence, the House could proceed to new articles of impeachment. The Justice Department is asking an appeals court to dismiss the case, arguing there's now no reason for judges to be involved in a political dispute. On Capitol Hill, Jared Halpern, Fox News.
Saudi Arabia sentences 5 people to death for last year's murder of dissident journalist Jamal Khashoggi and releases 2 prominent suspects close to the kingdom's crown prince. Amnesty International calls it a whitewash, which brings neither justice nor the truth. The trial was closed to the public and no names were released. The number of people traveling this holiday week flies off the charts.
More than 100 million, the most on record, will drive to their holiday destinations. Nearly 7 million will fly, the most in 16 years. And everybody else is either hopping on a train, bus, or cruise ship, nearly 4 million Americans. The TSA says if you're flying this year, you can expect every seat around you to be filled.
Fox's Anita Vogel. And one traveler infected with measles visited several locations in Chicago. Health officials are trying to track down that person who came through O'Hare with that highly contagious disease, December 12th or 17th. America's listening to Fox News.
Did you know that home loan rates have plunged again? Would you like to take advantage of these lower rates to help lower your monthly payments? Refinancing doesn't have to be for another 30 years. It can be for 10, 15, or 20 years. It's up to you. Reduce your monthly payments. Pay off your loan earlier. At Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Credit conditions apply.
Connecticut water treatment customers don't keep coming back. They're satisfied the first time. That's right. Connecticut non-electric water treatment systems take care of your water problems, and you won't need to keep calling us for repairs. Join the list of satisfied Connecticut customers who purchased their non-electric water systems years ago and are still enjoying clean, conditioned water without any hassles from timers or circuit boards.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Endorsements are flowing in for Democrats on the campaign trail.
Early Monday, Pete Buttigieg picked up 218 foreign policy endorsements, first reported by USA Today. On the list, officials from the Obama administration, including former Deputy CIA Director David Cohen and former Secretary of the Army Eric Fanning. Over the weekend, Buttigieg picked up some Hollywood star power with an endorsement from actor Kevin Costner. National frontrunner Joe Biden picked up a new endorsement Monday from a member of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus. Could Senator Elizabeth Warren be in for an early Christmas present? The Hill is reporting that former President Barack Obama is touting Warren's policies behind the scenes. Other candidates, from Bernie Sanders to Andrew Yang, will continue swings through New Hampshire and Iowa, where Buttigieg currently leads the pack.
Fox's David Spunt. The Iowa caucuses are February 3rd. A church group in Los Angeles says it's paying off millions of dollars of poor people's medical debt just in time for the holidays.
Christian Assembly's co-lead pastor Tom Hughes says they're able to pay off millions of dollars worth of poor people's medical debt because of their congregants' generosity.
We've worked with a nonprofit organization called Rest in Peace Medical Debt.
In a produced video, Hughes says they found out they can pay 1 penny per dollar to wipe out the debt. RIP Medical Debt's co-founder says they buy the debt from hospitals, doctors, and debt collectors. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
And the next season of Dancing with the Stars won't premiere until fall 2020, but Variety reports that ABC's already having preliminary conversations with celebrities that they would like to recruit for season 29. And on top of that list is Charlie Sheen. And he recently revealed he turned down an offer for last season because he was too afraid to dance. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Kelaguen Hapa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
Are you ready for some football? The Ray Gibson Show has got your fix every day with the Points NFL Pick'em contest. Get the latest updates as we check out the past week's performance and break down the upcoming action. Get your game on by calling the hotline at 888-TALK or sound off on Facebook Live at thepoint.gu. League members get a chance to win some awesome weekly prizes with a shot for your choice of a new GTA phone. The NFL Pick'em contest is brought to you by Current Guam with special thanks to GTA. Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's how we start the program every day. Excuse me. The day before Christmas being no exception. That well-regulated militia and the right to keep and bear arms is a 24/7, 365 type of operation. So we start out with Second Amendment reading every day, and we go from there to Zemi Ikotni. And as you recall, at Zemi Ikotni, our bilingual backwards play on words, meaning Meet the Press, I take a look at the two editorials, check them for errors in usage or grammar, theoretical shortfalls, and other delicts. And having highlighted those, I then weigh the merits of the two and award the better of the two, the coveted blue star. That is, if one of the editorials merits a blue star. According to the rule of mark, if neither of the editorials rises to the level of being meritorious, no blue star is given. The Daily News has fallen into a deep rut where they run stuff from somewhere else every day, usually Gannett News Service or USA Today. Very seldom do they ever have a local editorial, today being no exception, but they didn't go the USA Today route. Instead, they've got Todd Gitlin, a professor of journalism and sociology at Columbia University. So if it's from Columbia University, you pretty well know what to expect. And I'll just read a little bit of it, and you'll see why, as far as I'm concerned, it belongs in the shucks can. The title is, You Cannot Find Common Ground with GOP Fanatists. Fantasts. I'm having a hard time pronouncing this. F-A-N-T-A-S. Fantasists. Fantasists. A fantasist, I suppose, is one who propagates fantasies. And as it says, from climate, as your climate to Christmas to Ukraine, you cannot compromise with a fantasy. And the editorial goes on to explain why GOP positions, that is Republican positions, are mere fantasies, especially when compared with those of the left. So I'll give the Daily News credit for one thing this time. At least it's not Trump bashing. This time it's Republican Party bashing. I guess that's a little better than Trump bashing, but not a whole lot. Then from there we go to the Post. And the title of the Post editorial is 310,000 FestPac budget should be reconsidered. A bill to fund the Festival of Pacific Art delegations travel to Hawaii was sent to the governor's office on Monday. The bill provides $350,000 from Guam Council of Arts and Humanities agency's percent for the arts program. That amount already exceeds the FestPac committee's $310,000 budget as of November 27 budget draft, which was shared with senators. It is unclear why Senator Kelly Marsh, the author of Bill 249 and co-chairperson of the FestPac Planning Committee, proposed an amount that exceeds the budget. During legislative session last week, Senator Tello Taitigui introduced an amendment to cap the total amount of what CAHA could spend on FestPac at $250,000. The original bill didn't have a spending cap. Taitigui's amendment failed. So then Senator Therese Terlahi proposed a $310,000 budget. That too failed. Marsh proposed a $350,000 budget. It was this amount that received the required number of votes to be added to the bill, which now awaits the governor's signature as your action. Taitigui has said that with the full amount of the budget and anticipated costs of for FestPac more than fully covered, should Marsh's bill become law, the incentive to raise funds is reduced or even removed. The committee hasn't announced any fundraising monies thus far. FestPac committee chairwoman Anne Marie Arceo said she's working closely with Senator Marsh. Well, that's good. They're working closely. So what the editorial is saying here is this: 100 people want to go to the FestPac festivities in Honolulu so they can demonstrate the dances and songs that Frank Rabone invented about 30 years ago, and kind of pass that off as as having a pre-Hispanic cultural root on Guam. Marsh has also talked about shipping canoes to Honolulu and how much that would cost. The whole thing seems to me like money looking for a reason to be spent. So if the ordinarily way things like this are done, if a group of people wants to go off island to play baseball or dance or whatever it is they do, they have fundraisers. They have fundraisers at Johnny Cool's or other local bars. They do car washes, etc., and they go out and try to raise their own money. Not this time. The committee hasn't announced any fundraising monies thus far. FestPac Committee Chairman Anne Marie Arceo said she's working closely with Senator Marsh. Arceo said the Planning Committee got a late start, in large part due to the change in administrations, but noted that committee members are in discussion with certain local companies with hopes of getting some support to cover various costs. Well, they're in discussion. Marsh yesterday said the $310 figure is for a draft budget that is fluid and does not reflect an exact estimation of funds. So there needs to be flexibility. We are still finalizing the necessary costs for logistical and other means in Hawaii, such as moving the canoes. Now, why do we have to move canoes to Hawaii? Let's see, how would I say this? You know that you're dealing with a boondoggle because all of the things involved are a boondoggle. Ken Joetta. Right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ken Joetta's rule. We are finalizing the necessary costs for logistical and other means in Hawaii, such as moving the canoes and works of art from the shipyard to the venue. So that means, I guess, from the docks in Honolulu to wherever they're going to hold Festpac. Canoes. She also, and you know, if you don't know how much it's going to cost, don't come and ask for money. When you know how much it's going to cost, then come and ask for money. Marsh yesterday said the 300... Let me go on to the next page. Marsh also noted all expenses need to be reviewed and approved in a resolution passed by the board of Kaha. Its board members have expressed that they very much want to keep the cost of what is spent on Festpac at a minimum. And the Festpac task force is of the same mind. Oh, I take a lot of comfort from that. We're going to give folks over $300,000 for a boondoggle, but they are intent on keeping the size of the boondoggle down as small as possible. The Post says, we urge the committee in Kaha to look at the budget and reconsider some of the items. Yes, it's nice to be able to host a dinner for VIPs. Now, if they host a dinner for VIPs, wouldn't that include the chairman of the committee? Wouldn't that include Senator Kelly Marsh? I don't know. $350,000 is enough. I suspect she'll have to go as one of the dignitaries, along with some of the folks from Kaha and Anne Marie Arceo. So I don't know. $350,000 might not be enough to pay for all those dignitaries to go to Honolulu. Okay, so then the Post makes this point. In this day and age when a $50 SIM card can be purchased for data that can help you live stream performances using a $400 smartphone, a $36,000 budget for videos, photos, and live stream seems a little excessive. Well, if we're going to do all this stuff, obviously we want people to be able to see it. And then the Post says, we acknowledge the role of the Festival of Pacific Arts has played in the promotion of the Chamorro culture and the renaissance the island has experienced. Well, it's good that the Post does, because I don't think that I have. And once again, to go out, you know, what I see on a lot of occasions is the dances that Frank Rabone invented about 30 years ago that are we somehow pretend go back to pre-Hispanic Guam and the early Chamorro culture. And I don't know that it's necessary. If it's important, I don't know that it's necessary to spend a lot of government money on it. So the Post is bought in, and the Post says, and the government should assist at some level. But surely the cost of sending 100 people to Hawaii for a cultural exchange, as great as that is, ought to be weighed against what taxpayers on Guam should be expected to pay, and it ought to be weighed against some of the other stuff that we need to spend money on, like our hospital, like our police department, like Simon Sanchez High. So I'm going to take a peek at some of the Facebook comments here before I move on. Andrew Bainham joins a host of others who are wishing Merry Christmas. Andrew says, Merry Christmas and congratulations to the people of Guam. You now have the great honor of paying for the atrocities perpetrated on the people of Guam by the Japanese during World War II. Your payment is due for beheadings, forced marches, and forced labor. Please make checks payable to the 35th Guam Legislature and Tina Munya Barnes, Biba, Guam. Ken comes on and says, Little Lou, I know it's hard to think of people outside your power, outside, as you were. Think of people outside your group, but the people are the ones that gave you the power. And they're the ones that can take it away from you. Your little servants, TMB and Will C, are nothing to brag about, but having them at your beck and call like little dogs, it's a sum total of your legislative clout. The rest of the senators are feeling the pain of having the public know their names and for not doing anything good. It's a shame to know where we've one more year to go before we can drop the curtain on the last act of this crappy administration's last show. Nate horns in by saying, I'd like to go, free travel, vacation, and nights out, so let's add the name of Nate Horn. Would he be one of the 100, or we have to extend it to 101? What do you think, Real Joe Cruz?
I think that would be fine, sir.
101.
Absolutely.
All right, Nate wants to horn in there. And then we've got Rosalind and Michael Cruz. Festpac Guam better come home with receipts for accountability. And Ken says they still haven't paid for last Festpac. Carl Bora Nelson. That is amazing. On to the next one, and they haven't taken care of the last one. Prudencio Mano, just with the traditional Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas, Prudencio. Rosalind and Michael Cruz. I could care less if Guam wasn't represented. 2020, when the people of Guam are suffering, lesson learned, and Festpac raise money or no one goes. We just copied Hawaii Chamorros, did not dance Hawaii Chamorro. We just copied Hawaii Chamorros. We didn't dance the hula back in the old days. And that's our culture. You know, we borrowed these things from all over every place else, and we say, oh, yeah, that's the Chamorro culture. You know, we've been doing that for 2,000 years. We've been doing it for 30 years. And somehow we've got to go and show it off in Honolulu. Let's see if I got anything else noteworthy here. Okay, so a lot of folks are chiming in with a Merry Christmas, and of course I reciprocate with a Merry Christmas right back, and we'll say another Merry Christmas at the end of the program, won't we, Real Joe Cruz?
Sir, you don't think you should just say Happy Holidays? That you might offend somebody.
Well, that's all the more reason to say Merry Christmas,
Okay,
isn't it?
I'm just checking, sir.
This Happy Holidays thing, you know.
Just checking.
Thanks a lot for paying attention, Real Joe Cruz. I suppose if there are any folks out there in our international, well, of course there are folks out there in our international radio listening audience that don't belong to the Christian faith. There are no doubt people of the Jewish faith. There are probably Muslims out there, and Buddhists, and Zoroastrians, and cow-dyists, and Hindus, and on and on and on. But just as I would be able to take it in stride if I were to hear someone wish them the good tidings of their day, since they're listening to Tall Tales, they probably can reciprocate. So that's the beauty of the Tall Tales International radio listening audience. Okay, so I think you kind of softened up there at the end, Post, but your basic premise is correct. The legislature ought to reconsider this budget. So, Merry Christmas, Guam Daily Post. You got the blue star. I don't know, but I suspect that the owners of the Post will calculate this into the Christmas bonuses that the editorial board will be leaving with today. Since they are now leading 161-55, that ought to amount to a pretty substantial Christmas bonus, I would hope, for the folks down there at the Post. And you guys down there at the Daily News, you know, there might be something you could do with a bag of coal. Okay, so we have the card, and let's see, we're up to the 10th day of Christmas. I've gone through the first 9 days of Christmas. Yesterday, it was 9 drummers drumming. And the advice here is check local ordinances for restrictions on mass amounts of drumming. Let's cite New York City's local law 113, which is of 2005, placed some real restrictions on commercial music. Okay, on the 10th day of Christmas, my true love gave to me 10 pipers piping. Really, the same issues hold for piping as for drumming. But while we're better at it, better pay those pipers the appropriate state-sanctioned minimum wage if they were a gift. So, yeah, if these guys are professional musicians, they got to be paid the minimum wage. And since they're piping, yeah. Now, Piper is also a surname. Did you know that, real Joe Cruz?
Yes, I do, sir.
Yeah, I have cousins named Piper.
Nice.
Yeah, I had an Uncle Elmo Piper.
Wow.
Yeah, and an Aunt Florence Piper. Aunt Florence is responsible for many of the aphorisms that I use in talk radio.
Okay.
Aunt Florence, when she saw something that was extravagant, was fond of saying, you've got to cut the pattern to fit the cloth, which is something that no one understands nowadays. But just so you know, Real Joe Cruz, back in the day, if a woman wanted a dress, she'd probably make it herself. So she'd go to the store and buy a pattern, which was a piece of paper in the shape of the dress. She would buy one that was her size. She'd take it home along with a large piece of cloth. She'd lay the pattern on top of the cloth. And with her scissors, she would cut the cloth in the same shape as the pattern. And then she would do it twice, sew the two together, and she had a dress. Thus, those who were too free with spending their money would ordinarily hear Aunt Florence tell them, you've got to cut the pattern to fit the cloth. Right?
I see.
Yeah. Now you understand, huh? Okay. So that was the 10 pipers playing. Tomorrow, we're not going to go into this tomorrow, Real Joe Cruz. You and I are going to have to take the day off.
I thank you, sir.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't have to come in until Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah.
I will be here.
It's just me and the Christmas spirit, you know. Yeah. So next on the card, we've got Tello versus Tello. And this goes to, the passage of Bill 181-35. And I started talking about it yesterday. And I started to read all of the opposition that that Tello was mounting against Bill 181. No set spending limit, and on and on and on. She really came out foursquare against it. But did she vote for it? Yes, she did. And, this drew a certain amount of criticism here yesterday. If you think it's a bad bill and you think it's handled badly, then the right thing to do is vote against it. Because the way senators communicate with the public, now I know every senator would say, well, the way we communicate with the public is we do press releases and we do resolutions and we go to cookie pushing events and make boring speeches. But actually, the way you communicate with the public is, well, let me come back to this right after this break here.
Cocoa Coffee Company is now available at Circle K. Single origin coffee beans carefully sourced and locally roasted to give you the freshest cup of coffee Guam has to offer. Grab a cup that's brewed every 30 minutes or purchase a bag of the locally roasted whole beans. Flavors now serving: light medium roasted Ethiopia and medium dark roasted Jamaican Blue Mountain. Exclusively available at Circle K. With every Cocoa Coffee Company purchase, a portion of the proceeds will go towards the Cocoa Recovery Program.
Party with us on New Year's Eve at Kento's as we ring in 2020 and as we celebrate Kento's 10th anniversary. Live performances by Instajam and Super Club and music by DJ Daryl Azama and Ryan the Mixologist. General admission is $20. Includes 2 drinks and an appetizer, champagne toast, and a $500 balloon drop at midnight. Don't miss it. December 31st, Kento's at the Hyatt.
And what matters to you, because at Docomo Pacific, we're a family too. With the Now Family program, mom, dad, and kids stay connected on the latest devices the whole family can enjoy. For just $155 a month, get 3 lines with 30 gigs of 4G LTE data each, and endless use of your favorite apps without affecting your monthly data bucket. Add more, get more, save more. Docomo Pacific, better together. Some conditions apply.
Talk to Us with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech. Now through December 31st, you can save almost $900 on a complete Kinetico non-electric reverse osmosis drinking water system for your home. Call American Water Tech at 649-2301 to find out more. American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, I just spotted a comment on Facebook that I missed the first time through that's pretty appropriate for the whole Festback boondoggle. This one's from Andre. He says, I think 100 people should travel to Hawaii the traditional way, by canoe. Biba Traditions, Biba Guam. Good call, Andre. Yeah, let's go back to the old way of doing things. And I've got Kellis on the line. Good afternoon, Kellis.
Merry Christmas, Bob.
Same to you, Kellis.
I got a kind of an interesting question. Since the governor we have a free holiday today, right?
Uh-huh.
So all the GovGuam employees are getting paid, and the ones that were going to be working no matter what are getting paid double. But what about, I heard yesterday that the teachers aren't getting paid today. Are we leaving out a whole section of voters not getting additional pay for this additional payday?
Well, that's the interesting thing, Kellis, because I have from time to time told teachers that they really don't get paid holidays.
Yeah, I mean, I heard them saying that they're not getting paid because, it's off. But, I mean, if they're not working, everyone else in GovGuam that isn't working are getting paid.
The fact
and the ones that both work are getting paid double.
The fact that teachers are on Christmas vacation shouldn't bar them from getting that boondoggle, right? Yeah.
I think that there's a whole section of voters that are being misrepresented here, and if the teachers rise up, I think they'll get more money.
Well, if we're going to hand out free stuff, I'd like to see the teachers get it too, because I hold teachers in a high position.
Well, what I'm thinking is, what about, private employers? I think that if they are given the time off, that GovGuam should pay their employees not to work.
It would seem to be fair, wouldn't it, Kellis?
I think it would be very fair that way, because then if that came out, if Gov Guam, if Lou paid for like all of my employees and even for me to take a holiday, I'd vote for her.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. Okay.
Merry Christmas, Bob.
Thanks again, Kellis.
Bye.
Yeah. Yeah, teachers work approximately 180 days a year, maybe a little bit longer, and their salary is based on that. It's divided into 26 pay periods, usually, and it doesn't reflect the actual days that they work. It reflects that calendar. So when Lulu is so generous and gives people a day off with pay, she's not doing anything for the teachers. Interesting. Yeah, good call, Kellis. Okay, so going back to Bill 181-35, you know, we had some that spoke out against it and then voted for it anyhow. And my suspicion is because they want to be able to tell the Manamco, oh, I really want you to get the money. And I didn't like that bill, but, you know, if there's any chance, you know, I voted for it because I want you to know I want you to have the money. So this is kind of the wishful thinking approach to legislation. I really want something to happen. I really wish it would happen. Therefore, I don't care about the technicalities of bills and laws. It's kind of like a make-a-wish with 15 players, right? But if you scrape the paint and varnish off Bill 151, it's a hoax. And I'll tell you why. Okay, the objective here in 181, Little Lulu and Tina Rose would tell you, we want to get the money into the hands of the Manamco as soon as we can. Okay, question, what money? Answer, money that was paid, that was owed to the government of Guam as Section 30 funds in excess of the amount that was paid to Guam in 2016. So that amount is set aside every year, an account is kept of it every year, and those who suffered through the Japanese occupation file papers with the War Claims Commission. And if the War Claims Commission grants those claims, then money can be paid out of that sequestered Section 30 money. But the payments haven't occurred, you know that, because of Madeline Bordalio's screw-up. But the only money we're talking about is that the sequestered Section 30 money. So if Bill 181 passed tomorrow, or passed on Friday, and the governor signs it, nobody gets any money until the Senate passes San Nicolas's Bill 1365, and the president signs it into law. Now, what Tina and Lou want you to think is this: we'll pay you the money now, you sign your claim over to us, and then we will ask the U.S. Treasury to pay us to reimburse us the money we advanced. But if 1365 doesn't become law, there's nothing. There's nothing there. There's never been anything there, except Tina and Lou's willingness to go out and show off and pander to the old folks, making them think that they can make something out of nothing. So to make this really clear, let's say, just hypothetically, I don't want this to happen, but let's say hypothetically that this bill doesn't get to the Senate. It doesn't get through the Senate. And at the end of this Congress, that would be in next year, or actually January of 2021, at the end of this Congress, San Nicolas's Bill 1365 is gone. So who gets paid? Answer, nobody. Because until 1365 becomes federal law, there isn't anything there. Now, if you understand that, then put yourself in the position of a responsible Treasury official. who gets a letter enclosing this incredibly badly drafted bill saying, we want to enter into an MOU with these guys. And the Treasury says, well, what should the MOU say? And we say, well, the MOU should say that when we advance money to those whose claims have been positively or claims have been granted by the War Claims Commission, and those people sign their claims over to us, you will reimburse us. And the Treasury's going to say, reimburse you from where? And the answer is going to be, well, you know, from that Section 30 money that you've been holding and can't distribute. Well, if we can't distribute it, then how can we sign an MOU? So I got a suggestion. You know, once you get this out of your, once you've taken care of this one, Lou and Tina Rosemunya Barnes, I have a suggestion. Why don't you introduce a bill to reduce, as you were, to repeal the law of gravity? Because I'll tell you what, I am so tired of holding on to something, and when I let go of it, it falls. Now, if you were to repeal the law of gravity, if I let go of this pencil here, it would just hang there in the air. I'll think of some other good bills that maybe you could repeal the law of supply and demand, too. That one sometimes gets in the way when prices get too high. So this whole thing is a gigantic hoax. And even people who saw through some of the hoax have gone along with it. Now, according to some of the crime shows on TV, people can be conned by con men because they're gullible. The con man comes along with a story and lays it out, and the gullible victim says, oh, that sounds pretty good. And then the victim goes from there to hoping that what the con man says is true. Gee, I'd really hope that's true, because I'd like to be able to invest $10 a month and in 10 years draw down $10,000 a month. I really hope that's true. So I'm going to give it a try. And then, having succumbed to the cons, an awful lot of the victims are just too embarrassed to say, I was so dumb and so gullible, I got conned. Well, that's what happened to you guys down at the legislature. And Tello and the other two that spoke out against the bill and then voted for it are the classic example of what I'm talking about. I think it's I hope it's true. I wish it were true, because I want a good result for our man Emco. Wow. But take heart, Real Joe Cruz. All is not lost. You know why?
Why, sir?
We have 10 women in our legislature.
That's what I'm talking about, sir.
Yeah, 10 women, man. In January, we were put, you know, those of us who weren't paying attention were set straight immediately. This is going to be different. We have 10 women in our legislature. We're going to have women leading us. And our governor is a woman. So we're going to be in great shape here. It certainly has worked out well for us, hasn't it? I wasn't conned, though. You know, I heard the con men in this thing, oh, you know, women will really do it well. They're very good. I was not conned. I didn't buy the con. And I because I didn't buy the con, I'm not embarrassed. So embarrassed that I'll come back and say, well, yeah, I didn't want to say anything because I bought the con. So there we are, Tello versus Tello and the big con. Okay, let's see what else I've got here on the card. I have I've got Lou versus our tourist industry. I got it somewhere here. Yeah, Lou versus our tourist industry. I covered this the other day in the context of, a story that ran in the Daily News. Governor, Christmas Eve is Gov Guam holiday. Early payday in the spirit of giving. That's what the story says. So Lou, our governor, in the spirit of giving, moved the payday for 3 days forward and gave every government of Guam employee a day off, except those who can't take the day off, double pay. So I covered that yesterday, and I guess it must have really stuck in my mind because last night I had a dream. And in my dream, a statue was built at the foot of what we call the hill there by the Weston, right? Right at the foot of that hill where you come down from Marine Corps Drive down to San Vittori's Boulevard. There was a statue built right in the middle of the intersection. And the statue was a very lifelike representation of our governor, Lou Leon Guerrero, the first female governor of Guam. So she's standing there facing the traffic coming down the hill with her arm outstretched, her right arm outstretched, and her middle finger pointing towards the sky. In other words, in my dream, she was down there giving the finger to everybody who has to go to work today down in our tourist industry. You know, the hotels are open, the buses are running, the restaurants are serving people. Life goes on down there. There's no day off with pay. There's no double pay. And a lot of the folks that work down there are going to have to work on Christmas. And I say that what Lou is doing is giving them the finger because they're the guys that pay for all of this stuff. They're the ones that pay for the government of Guam. So what a nice way to show your appreciation for a large section of the taxpayers who are paying for our government by giving the government, the ones that don't contribute anything to the Treasury, giving them a day off with pay. I said it was a dream. I guess I ought to reclassify it. Rather than a dream, I think it was actually a nightmare. See if I've got a dream. And Jimmy, you opened the Jimmy line already, huh?
Yep.
Let's see. Jimmy, are you a dream interpreter?
No, I'm just a joke teller.
A joke teller.
Gov Guam is an easy target.
For sure. Hey, Jimmy, do you know how many government of Guam employees it takes to screw in a light bulb?
Well, that's the personnel.
Can't tell you that. It's a personnel matter. Go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, how many Gov Guam employees sell ice?
I don't know, Jimmy. How many?
Well, you want me to tell you the ones that got caught or the ones that hadn't got caught yet?
Either way, Jimmy.
Well, anyway, how many Gov Guam employees smoke ice?
How many, Jimmy?
Same answer. You want the ones that got caught or the ones that hadn't got caught yet?
I see. Okay, Jimmy.
Merry Christmas. Bye.
Merry Christmas. Always a pleasure, Jimmy. Thanks for calling. Hey, you have a Merry Christmas.
Bye.
And let's see, I got another other Joe. So there are two another Joes, huh? Okay. Well, good afternoon, another Joe.
But Uncle Bob, what about the Sunday laws? And doesn't that carry on over to Christmas and Christmas Eve?
Which laws is that?
This wasn't commonly known as the Sunday or the blue something laws.
The blue laws.
Yeah, but you used to have those.
Well, blue laws used to mean that you couldn't sell liquor on Sunday and stuff like that. Stores had to be closed on Sunday. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, wasn't that kind of a religious or faithful context, kind of?
I think it was. I think it was part of kind of the Protestant approach to things. I remember the town I grew up in, all the stores were closed on Sunday. Except
that's the way it was in Guam for for a while, I believe the only stores here that were open were the Korean stores.
Let me tell my story. All the stores in my hometown when I was growing up were closed on Sundays, except for Cost's North End store, and he stayed open on Sunday. But other than that, everybody else was closed, and we just kind of thought that was the normal way things were. All the little towns in that area were that way. So when I came over here 56 years ago, I was amazed to find that most of the stores stayed open 7 days a week and oftentimes until at least 9 o'clock at night. Ooh. So I don't think that the blue laws ever had any impact on Guam. And, you know, I thought about it, and I thought the reason was that because Guam is in its own way very cosmopolitan. You know, Guam is not a southern state, and it's probably not that way anymore, but a lot of restaurants on Guam served grits for breakfast. And grits is traditionally a southern food. Now, everybody on Guam are not southerners, but a lot of GIs came from the south, and they wanted grits for breakfast. So we didn't have blue laws here. You think is a break coming up, real Joe?
Yeah, I think so, sir.
Yeah,
Sorry.
You know that you're listening to bumper music for the break when your ears start to hurt.
Okay, goodbye. So if it's a break, then I just have to listen later. But I guess I must be mistaken. Maybe it was just some of the stores then.
Yeah, we didn't have blue laws here, another Joe. But thanks for calling, and Merry Christmas to you, sir.
Merry Christmas, there. Well.
A diamond ring turns into a black pearl and hangs shimmering in the sky.
Join 93.3 The Point for a spectacular celestial event. On the evening of December 26th, a rare solar eclipse will take place just before sunset.
We see the sun's atmosphere, normally not visible.
Most of the sun will be blocked during the eclipse, leaving only a ring of fire visible, and we have the best seats and the safest way to watch it.
It's one of the great wonders of the solar system.
Join us at the Point Coffee Lounge at the Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort from 4 to 6 p.m. on December 26th. The first 100 guests will receive a pair of Eclipse viewing glasses, a complimentary glass of iced tea, and a coupon good for discounts at Sheraton's Surfers Point Bar or La Cascada Buffet Restaurant. Join us for the Point's 2019 Eclipse Viewing Party, December 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the beautiful Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort. Brought to you in part by Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, and your sky-watching friends at 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so here we are. We got about 7 minutes till that big halftime show. I'm going to go back and cruise through Facebook again. See what I've got here. Nate Horn's in about FESPAC and says they've had 4 years to plan already. And let's see. Our Carl says, this is amazing. On to the next one, and they haven't taken care of the last one. And then, let's see, Andrew Benham. The Japanese soldiers that committed atrocities are laughing in their graves at the people of Guam. They committed the crimes against the people of Guam during World War II, and 75 years later, the people of Guam are paying for it. BIBA 35th Guam Legislature. An interesting viewpoint. And then Jesse Limtiaco comes along and says, Section 30 money should never have been used to begin with. And of course, we all know that. And of course, we all know what happened. That this was one of Madeline Bordalio's triumphs. She had it. She had a deal with John McCain, who would have taken it through the Senate and paid with money from the U.S. Treasury, paying only those who were alive, who suffered through the atrocity and were alive on the day that his bill passed. and those who actually were killed during the Japanese occupation. But Madeline kept holding out and saying, well, I want the heirs of those who lived through the occupation but died before the bill passed. I want them to get something too. And McCain says, well, I made my offer, take it or leave it. Man, I've got to go home and check with my constituents. And as a result, she didn't go along with McCain's bill. And so she once again learned the lesson that 100% of nothing isn't anywhere near as 50% of something. So that's the reason that we're using Section 30. So to recover from that, Jesse, then she came along and introduced a bill to use the Section 30 money. And her excuse this time was, well, I'm just using that as a placeholder. I want to get the bill through Congress, and then I'll come back and find another funding source. Yeah. So here we are, and Andrew lays it right on the line, you know. Japanese soldiers are probably laughing in their graves that now we're paying for what they did with our own money. Dave Duenas, Merry Christmas to you. And Prudencio Mano, whatever happened to the holiday hotline? I heard an advertisement on the radio yesterday that what used to be called mental health and substance abuse is running the holiday hotline now, Prudencio. And, of course, if you're stuck between 4 and 6 on any weekday, you can always call Tall Tales, and I'll run my own holiday helpline for you. Nate horns in and tells us that retail is open too. He says he's still at the office. Jesse Lemtiaco tells us that Trump gave the federal government the day off as well. Just as bad. Just as bad. Okay, Jesse's on the line. Jesse, do you want to talk about the holiday?
Yeah. Merry Christmas to you and the whole family there.
Okay.
And I just wanted to say that Andrew was saying that the Japanese will be laughing in their grave.
Uh-huh.
I think that was pretty that's it's a joke or whatever, but that's pretty that's like poor taste. But anyways, MSN Mike Nicholas should have just repealed this whole thing to begin with. I mean, he should have said, okay, that funding source is probably not the best source, but he wanted to win as well, and he went along with it, and that's where we are today. And now the legislature is saying, okay, well, if it's Section 30 money, then we could legislate it locally and appropriate those funds for the Mononcos. So they're looking for a win, and it just gets all political. But
Jesse, that's
like a circus.
That's not what the legislature is saying. What the legislature is saying, is saying is, if the Treasury would agree to reimburse us, we'll use local funds to pay the claimants and get reimbursed by the Treasury, provided that the claimants assign their claim to us.
Right, but that's what I mean. I mean, at the end of the day, it's still, they're still going after this thing that well, if you're going to use Section 30 money, you might as well reimburse us, So
what the legislature could have done, if we're using Section 30 money now, we could have done that 20 years ago. We could have enacted a local law and said we're going to pay this with Section 30 money, but we didn't do that.
And I think Carl Gutierrez said something like that on the campaign trail this last election. He was mentioning, he goes, well, we could have just did that, but anyways, it's just funny, and everyone's trying to look for a win here. But yeah, Merry Christmas and everything. We'll see you guys around next time.
Okay, thanks for calling, Jesse, and Merry Christmas to you. Okay, big halftime show. I suspect that the cheerleaders are going to be dressed in some sort of Christmas uniform for today's halftime show, Real Joe Cruz.
Yes, sir.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The impasse remains. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. Democrats and Republicans failed to move the ball along the impeachment field, but Democrats signal they may impeach the president on yet another article. Republicans slamming Speaker Pelosi for not sending the current articles to the Senate for trial.
The Speaker is justifying her strategy, saying House Democrats must wait to choose their impeachment managers until the Senate settles on details of any trial. She tweeted, quote, President Trump blocked his own witnesses and documents from the House and from the American people on phony complaints about the House process. What's his excuse now? And Senate Democrats are asking what the White House is afraid of.
Fox's Rich Edson. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell tells Fox News he wants a quick trial.
And most people I run into, whether they're fans of the president or not, say, well, why don't you just let us decide this? We're in the middle of the election.
However, McConnell may follow President Trump's lead on whether to allow witnesses at a trial. The president, though, still mulling that over. The Pentagon identifies a soldier killed in Afghanistan Monday as 33-year-old Sergeant First Class Michael James Goebel of Bergen County, New Jersey.
The Taliban is claiming responsibility, saying fighters blew up a vehicle. The group also said it was responsible for the downing of a helicopter last month, which killed 2 U.S. service members. The Defense Department denies that claim. This latest death comes as peace talks continue with the Taliban and as defense officials consider reducing troop numbers there from around 12,000 to 8,600. In Washington, Rachel Sutherland, Fox News.
And Syrian government forces press ahead with a new military assault on the country's last rebel stronghold. That offensive that began last week set off a mass exodus of civilians fleeing to safer areas near the Turkish border. The UN is alarmed by the escalated fighting and calling for an immediate halt to the hostilities. America's listening to Fox News.
Celebrate your holiday festivities with dinner at Hyatt Regency Guam on Christmas Eve and Christmas Day at Al Dente Ristorante. Enjoy a holiday family set menu, which includes Fiorentina steak, lobster tail, and an array of Italian favorites, suitable for up to a family of 4. Eat, drink, and be merry during the holidays at Hyatt Regency Guam's Al Dente Ristorante. To make your reservations, please call 647-1234.
We can't buy this house.
What?
It has 4 bathrooms. Just think of all the bathtub rings, water spots, and stains, plus the cleaning products I'll have to buy.
Didn't I tell you? The house comes with a non-electric Kinetico water treatment system. We'll have clean, soft water throughout the house, protect the water-using appliances, keep the tub, showers, and sinks looking like new, and help our skin, hair, and clothes look and feel great, too. The house even includes a Kinetico drinking water system.
A Kinetico system in the house? We'll take it.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Former National Security Advisor John Bolton sharply criticizes President Trump's policy on North Korea.
In an interview in the Axios website over the weekend, ex-National Security Advisor John Bolton really letting loose, blasting the North Korean policy of the Trump administration. He said his former boss is bluffing about North Korea wanting to stop the nuclear program. He said, and this is a quote, that the U.S. doesn't really mean it, or the administration would be pursuing a different course. In fact, the latest tweet from President Trump just a short few days ago said that, and I'm quoting here, Kim is too smart, too much to lose, to act in a hostile way.
Fox's Greg Palacott, North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, threatening to deliver a Christmas gift to the U.S. unless it eases up on sanctions. Federal agents reportedly found guns and drugs on rapper Lil Wayne's private jet at a Miami airport Monday evening. The Miami Herald reports agents acting on a tip got a search warrant and boarded the plane at Miami Opa-locka Executive Airport. They say they found cocaine, opioids, and drugs. Prosecutors in Texas charge a 19-year-old man with capital murder after allegedly confessing to killing his pregnant sister, writing a fake suicide note in her name, and leaving her body in an alley. Eduardo Arevalo says that he killed his sister because she was an embarrassment. Capital murder means he could get the death penalty. And winter brings the shortest days of the year, but on Friday, Seattle logged its darkest day in the city's recorded history. The Seattle Times reports that the University of Washington came to that conclusion by factoring in the heavy cloud cover with that shorter day, and that's how they got to measure of the little bit of solar radiation that reached the ground. This is Fox News.
Here at APL, our core values give the company its heart and soul. Whether it's connecting your business with our global network through our newly enhanced service or investing our efforts into giving back to the community, APL is committed to serving you. We humbly honor the opportunity to find innovative solutions for you and your business. To learn more about our enhanced service, call 588-4651 or visit www.apl.com/Guam for more details.
GRMC's Neuroscience and Neurology Department treats a wide spectrum of disorders associated with the nervous system, spine, and brain. Some of the more common disorders include seizures, epilepsy, dementia, sleep disorders, migraine, and stroke, which is one of the leading causes of death on Guam. GRMC's neuroscience team is equipped with the latest technology and the finest neurological doctors. To make an appointment, contact GRMC Specialty Clinics at 645-5500.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Thus ends another beautiful halftime show here at Tall Tales. That means we're now in the second half of Tall Tales on Christmas Eve. I've got about, 53 minutes to go before I can go home and assume the role of Santa Claus at my house. I won't be anywhere near as effective at it. Of course, it's Governor Lou Leon Guerrero who gave the whole government day off with pay. Next item on the card is more Weir versus American Samoa. And I've talked about this before based on stories that I found online, but the Post finally got around to running Weir's press release. Apparently, Weir has his own little organization that depends on fundraising, so it's pretty important that he gets the word out about the things that he's doing. And the story that ran in the Post needs a whole lot of correction, as is the case with much of the things that Weir said. Weir really likes this, people of Guam are second-class citizens, which, of course, just isn't true. So let me go through this article here and point out some of what I think are the fallacies in Weir's release. It says, the title, Lawyer, American Samoa Citizenship Case Affects All Territories. A recent determination by a federal judge that American Samoans are U.S. citizens has major ramifications for all the territories, according to Neil Weir, president of Equally American and an attorney for the plaintiffs in the case. Major ramifications for all the territories. Well, not really, because what the American Samoa case said is this, that according to the first sentence, a proper reading of the first sentence of the 14th Amendment means that anyone born under an American sovereignty is a citizen at birth. So that means that people who were born on Guam were citizens the day they were born, if this case holds. But that's a distinction without a difference, because the Organic Act passed in 1950 and made everybody an American citizen. So kids born today, that kid born, the first baby born in 2020 is going to be an American citizen regardless of Weir's decision. Okay, then it goes on to say, the insular cases have long been seen as subjecting plenary authority over the territories to Congress. Well, it's not the insular cases, it's actual Article 4, Section 3 of the United States Constitution that is the source of Congress's plenary authority over the territories. The decision issued in a federal court in Utah is significant because it establishes a constitutional basis for the rights of residents within the territories rather than defaulting to Congress, according to Weir. Well, the Utah decision relies on that part of the Constitution called the First sentence of the 14th Amendment, which reads, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state wherein they reside. That's the part of the Constitution that the Utah judge zeroed in on. He didn't say, the judge didn't say that I'm putting aside Article 4, Section 3. He didn't say that the insular cases, I'm putting aside the insular cases. For one reason, he can't, because he's not the Supreme Court of the United States. But he didn't say that that there's a constitutional basis for the rights of residents in the territory rather than defaulting to Congress. He didn't say that. He didn't come close to saying that. In fact, he went out of his way to not say that, because he surfaced the insular case at issue here. There are, depends on who does the counting, there are about 24 cases that we would call the insular cases. The most important two were De Lima versus Bidwell and Downs versus Bidwell. And they were both, Bidwell was a customs collector for New York. So if you were to bring goods from a foreign country into the port of New York, Mr. Bidwell would come out and make you pay customs duty on those goods. So De Lima and Downs dealt with oranges and bananas. I don't remember which one was which, but I think De Lima was oranges. So Mr. Bidwell attempted to charge De Lima a customs duty on the oranges he was importing because they were coming from a foreign country, Puerto Rico. And when that case got to the Supreme Court said, no, Puerto Rico is not a foreign country. It is under the sovereignty of the United States. And because of that, you can't collect a tariff on those oranges, Mr. Bidwell. The first insular case. The next one that came along is Downs versus Bidwell. Downs was also an importer, and Downs wants to bring some bananas from Puerto Rico into the port of New York. Now, the situation changed a little bit after De Lima because the United States enacted an Organic Act for Puerto Rico. And it's referred to historically as the Foraker Act. I guess Congressman Foraker was the main sponsor. But the Foraker Act said that dutiable goods coming from Puerto Rico to the United States could be charged duty, but only 50% of the duty that would be charged if the goods came from a foreign country. So when Bidwell charged the duty imposed by the Foraker Act, Downs appealed. But the Supreme Court said, no, Bidwell was right, because that 50% duty charged on goods coming from Puerto Rico was constitutional. It was a long case. It's like 100 pages, I think. I've studied the thing. I mean, not just read it, I've studied it. And 3 judges wrote opinions to decide the case. Now, when 3 judges read opinions and they all reach a result for different reasons, there's a little bit of a problem of interpretation. So the first rule is the result that the most judges vote for is the rationale decidendi. So 2 judges voted for the result in Downs, but the rule that Downs developed was this: there is a clause in the United States Constitution, which, as per my usual custom, I will read to you. It's in I should have marked this. It's a section yeah, here it is. Wait a minute. Oh, yeah. It's right in front of my eyes here. It's Article 1, Section 8, Paragraph 1 of the United States Constitution. Section 8 is the part of the Constitution that delineates the powers of the government by telling Congress what it can do. The Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes, duties, imposts, and excises, to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. All duties shall be uniform throughout the United States. So if Bidwell was trying to collect the tariff on goods coming from Puerto Rico that was 50% of the duty that would be paid on an import from anywhere else, what the court did was say that the uniformity clause of Article 1, Section 8 did not apply to Puerto Rico. And that is the foundation of the so-called incorporation doctrine. So Downs versus Bidwell dealt with tariffs and the uniformity clause. So in the Utah case, the Utah judge said, we're dealing here with citizenship and people, and the first sentence of the 14th Amendment, which I just read, speaks directly to that. Downs versus Bidwell, and a later case called Balzac versus Puerto Rico, which ratified Downs, deals with the uniformity clause. So the uniformity clause has nothing to do with citizenship, etc. So what it all boils down to is this, that a person born in where there is American sovereignty is a citizen by birth, even though the place of his birth may not be subject to the uniformity clause of the United States Constitution because it's in a territory. That's what the decision said. So it doesn't plow any new ground as far as the insular cases or Article 4, Section 3 is concerned. It deals only with the First Amendment, as you were the first sentence of the 14th Amendment, and it clearly distinguishes its holding from that in Downs versus Bidwell. However, that doesn't stop Neil Weir. Neil Weir says, it's a very exciting decision for residents of the territories. It's really one of the first times that a federal judge has recognized that individuals have rights guaranteed by the Constitution rather than just rights extended by Congress. And I explained why. Obviously, the people of Guam and American Samoa don't have any voting representation in Congress, so having a constitutional backstop to our rights is critical. Critical for what? Critical for fundraising for the outfit called Equally American? The article goes on to say the case was brought by 3 Utah residents originally from American Samoa who sued to be recognized as U.S. citizens, according to the United States Associated Press. American Samoans are considered U.S. nationals instead of citizens. The judge, in siding with the plaintiffs, ordered the government to issue them new passports. The AP stated that it wasn't immediately clear whether the ruling applied outside Utah. Well, it's pretty clear to me that it does. If you read the ruling and if you recognize that the United States is a defendant, then it applies to the United States wherever the United States does business. Associated Press 671-8255 if you have any more questions on these. I can set you straight. While the case most directly addresses citizenship, quote, beyond that, the case is important because it sets a new standard that the insular cases should be looked at quite narrowly. No, that's not what the case says. It says almost the opposite. And the fault shouldn't be that Congress has essentially unlimited powers in the territories. Well, you got a different copy of that case than I did, Mr. Weir. The U.S. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, in its July affirmation of the Arnold Dave Davis decision, which struck down Guam's plebiscite law as unconstitutional, noticed that absent an act of Congress, federal constitutional rights do not automatically apply to unincorporated territories. That's true. The key word here is ex proprio vigere. Ex proprio vigere means of their own force. So that was the argument in Downs, that the Constitution did not apply of its own force, therefore the uniformity clause didn't apply. And that Congress amended the Organic Act to extend certain federal rights to Guam, including the 15th Amendment to right to vote. Well, yeah, actually, in 1968, in the so-called Mink Amendments, all of the provisions of the Bill of Rights were extended to Guam, except the First Amendment, as were the first sentence of the 14th Amendment. Now, back as another quote from Weir. That kind of broad approach to the insular cases really puts the rights of all residents of the territories at risk. Like Congress is going to come along and repeal the Mink Amendment. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to happen. I had a nightmare last night, but even I don't think I could even have a nightmare like that. This decision is really an important step forward in ensuring every American enjoys the same basic rights wherever they happen to live. Well, it's a step forward in saying this, that if that case holds, in other words, if and it's probably it has a chance of going to the Supreme Court, if the rule in the Utah case becomes the rule of the law of the land, then every person born under American sovereignty would have the same basic right to citizenship. And that's all it holds. But intertwined within question of citizenship and citizens' rights is a question who should be able to represent these issues in the first place. Now, I'm going to stop. I'm going to go backwards here, back to Weir's analysis, and then I'll finish up this article here. So what the judge said is read the first sentence of the 14th Amendment. And you guys have read it wrong before, because what it says, if you're born in the United States, you're a citizen of the United States. So the question is, what do these words mean? All persons born in the United States. What does that mean? Does that mean just the 50 states? Does that mean if you were born in the District of Columbia, you're not a citizen at birth? Does it mean that if you were born in one of the territories, you're not a citizen at birth? Well, that's the way it has been looked at up until now. But the Utah judge has said, now the plain meaning of those words, plus the history of citizenship under the British Crown and in the American colonies, held that the Americans obeyed the law of jus soli, the law of the soil. So the British rule was that if you were born in a piece of land where there was British sovereignty, you were a subject of the king or queen. And that has been the law of the United States. If you're born somewhere where the U.S. exercises sovereignty, you are a citizen of the United States. Now, I'll show you an example of the opposite. Let's say that Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. Smith is in the Navy. Wait a minute. Am I screwing up here? Mr. Smith, Mrs. Smith. They, right? Yeah, they are.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, that's better, right? They are in the Navy, and they are stationed in Japan. And while they are in Japan, they have a baby. You want to know which one of them had the baby? Real Joe Cruz? You want to know?
Not really, sir.
Well, I'm going to tell you which one of them had the baby.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Yeah, them.
Okay.
Yeah, you got that now?
I got it.
Yeah, they had a baby. That baby is not a natural-born citizen of the United States. That baby is a citizen of the United States only because of the immigration and naturalization laws of the United States that say that a child born of American parents is an American citizen. That is the jus sanguinis approach to citizenship. So the judge in the Utah case said, you guys have been misreading the 14th Amendment. In the United States means in the 50 states, in the District of Columbia, and in the territories where the American flag flies. American Samoa is one of those territories. Therefore, you guys down there in American Samoa were citizens the day you were born. Now, I read a letter from Amata Coleman Radewagen, who said that American Samoans were really surprised when they woke up in the morning and found out that they were American citizens because they didn't want to be American citizens. And this article goes on to say this. Intertwined within the questions of citizenship and citizen rights is the question of who should be able to represent these issues in the first place. The American Samoa government entered the Utah case as an intervening defendant, arguing in part that the plaintiff sought to, quote, circumvent the historical role of the American Samoa government in negotiating with the United States government about the rights of the American Samoan people, including about the naturalization status of American Samoans. Weir said it was disappointing to see American Samoa government oppose them in this case. Now, Peter Santos chimed in a few days ago saying that Weir is stricken with a disease called saviorism. He's going to go out and save people, regardless of if they want to be saved or not. Weir said it's disappointing to see the American Samoa government oppose them in the case, but the concerns it raised really are misplaced, and the judge and the judge was able to address misconceptions. We have an FAQ that addresses some of the concerns that have been raised, Weir said. For now, however, the matter's on hold. The judge issued a stay on his ruling a day after the order. A few of our plaintiffs were able to register to vote before the state came down. So it's kind of a race to register, and now the decision is essentially on pause until the appellate court can review the district court's decision, Weir said. All right, seventh inning stretch coming up.
The holidays are here and the shopping frenzy begins. Protect yourself with these safe shopping tips. Consider shopping only with retailers you trust or do some research on other retailers you aren't familiar with before proceeding. Don't save your credit card information on retail websites and never make payments when using public Wi-Fi. Switch to cellular data or wait until you get to a secure network to make your purchases. These safe holiday banking tips are brought to you by Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, member FDIC.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try their featured special for December. Kahlua pork and cabbage, slow-roasted smoke-laced pork, shredded and sautéed with onions and cabbage, served with steamed rice and lomi-lomi salmon. Try it today. Available in Agana and in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Party with us on New Year's Eve at Kento's as we ring in 2020 and as we celebrate Kento's 10th anniversary. Live performances by Instajam and Super Club and music by DJ Daryl Lazama and Ryan the Mixologist. General admission is $20 and includes 2 drinks and an appetizer, champagne toast, and a $500 balloon drop at midnight. Don't miss it. It's happening December 31st at Kento's at the Hyatt.
Seventh inning stretch. So here we are, center field bleachers at Wrigley Field. Guess who I find out here in the center field bleachers? It's the poet laureate of Tall Tales, Andrew. Here's Andrew for today. Some may think our Bob is a Grinch, but he's always there in a pinch. He defends and he fights for our God-given rights, and never will he give up an inch. Merry Christmas, Bob. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. I would wear your limerick like a badge. Thank you very much. Okay, so Jimmy wants to ride the Ferris wheel again. I got somebody else. I'll let somebody else get on the wheel. Oh, you've opened the Tom line. Okay, yes, so sir. I'm going to let Tom get on the Ferris wheel first, and then we'll come back to you, Jimmy. Hello, Tom.
Hi, sir. Thank you for opening the Tom line for me.
Say again?
I just said thank you for opening the Tom line for me. But anyway, my question is, when the U.S. Constitution says all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are they talking about the persons being a subject of the United States, subject to the jurisdiction, or the land?
Well, let me
Which is the subject of jurisdiction of the United States, the land or the persons?
Let me read it again, Tom. It says, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof. The thereof refers back to the United States, meaning a person who is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. And I'll explain what most people think that means. During wartime, let's say during World War II, a citizen of Germany who was in the United States would have been an enemy alien and would not have been subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. If you were in Washington, D.C., you'd see a lot of cars driving around with diplomat plates on them. And the nice thing about being a diplomat is that you're immune. You have diplomatic immunity to the laws of the country you're serving in. So if a car with diplomat parking as your license plates parks in front of a meter and doesn't put any money in it, the government can't collect a parking ticket from that guy, because ambassadors and other consular personnel are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So that's what that sentence means, subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. So that means that you can't be a diplomat or an enemy alien when you're born. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yeah, I guess that kind of answers my question. So it is the persons that are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States, right?
Yes, yes.
Oh, okay. Because there will be some people that would assume that that Guam will be subject to the jurisdiction of the United States in the enactment of the Organic Act, but it's not the case. It is the persons that are subject to the jurisdiction.
Exactly. Right. Yeah, right, Tom.
All right, that answers my question, sir.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks for calling, and Merry Christmas to you, Tom.
Merry Christmas to my friend.
And we'll keep the Tom line open on Thursday.
All right. Okay, bye.
Okay, I noticed that Jimmy took a time out, and now that I've closed the Tom line, Jimmy's back on the line for his second ride on the Ferris wheel. We've got two. Here we are. We got two Jimmys again today.
Sorry. Anyway, your analysis of the situation is interesting, but I just wonder if the whole thing is, do they just want some more of that federal money?
Did they what?
Do they want some more of that federal funding?
They being...
GUA and Give Us American Money.
Yeah, I don't think
They want some more of that American money.
Yeah, well, they get some more of that American money, yeah.
Yes, of course, America would fall without all the help Guam and the other American Samoa. America would probably collapse without the help of these, our beloved fellow Pacific Islanders.
Well, we are the tip of the spear, Jimmy.
Yeah.
So, once again, Jimmy, I thank you for calling in. And I wish you a Merry Christmas again. So long. Okay, so we've got Chris on the line. Good afternoon, Chris.
Have a day and Merry Christmas to you and family, Bob.
Same to you, Chris.
So it seems that I'm picking up on this Neil Rear and recent decision conversation that caught me with interest. I think we had this conversation before where I presented to you, does the Constitution follow the flag?
Mm-hmm.
You had a statement on that. Can you refresh my memory?
Well, does the Constitution follow the flag? The answer is no. Under the case law, the Constitution of the United States does not apply ex proprio vigere to the insular territories. In other words, of its own force.
So it seems like this court decision almost didn't follow that philosophy, though, correct?
Well, it said that one sentence of the Constitution followed the flag, not because of any doctrine of grounded in the finding of ex proprio vigere, but simply on the interpretation of the words. So, so it's more it's not statutory interpretation because it's constitutional, but he used the same tool that a court would use in statutory interpretation, starting out with the words that he would interpret. All persons born in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States. Question, what does in the United States mean? And he elaborately goes to show that under the American and English theory of citizenship, Samoa is in the United States. Therefore, someone born there is a citizen of the United States.
And it seems like the argument might follow maybe the independence way of thinking and those who would want to, at least from American Samoa's point of view, and Ms. Radewagen perhaps, or how they presented their opposition to the case would be that it takes away the argument of some sort of what you would call what the argument or what the current presentation here at home is on the right to self-determination, kind of taking away that sort of position because you are now. Are you following?
I am, yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's. Go ahead.
I'm intrigued at your position on this, Bob, because I would think that if the discussion on that matter, because regardless, I mean, you're not going to change. Well, you can't change unless it was probably an act of Congress or what our current status is. So if you're arguing for a status that you're trying to right in terms of a prior wrong as you see it, I don't think that your current status would affect that or even a decision of the courts in terms of interpretation of what your citizenship is.
I'm having a little difficulty following, Chris.
No, in other words, meaning, I was having a little bit of difficulty following how American Samoa would have been opposed to that, only thinking that they wanted to retain some sort of status rights and didn't want to be.
Well, the American Samoan opposition is based on the way American Samoa is governed. Mm-hmm. American Samoa doesn't have an organic act, but it does have a constitution. And in the constitution, there's a bicameral legislature. The lower house is popularly elected. The upper house is composed of traditional chiefs or people chosen by the chiefs. Mm-hmm. That wouldn't pass the 15th Amendment muster. And the whole chief, it's called the Matai system. And the Matai system is tied into land tenure. In Samoa, you can't go down and buy that corner lot and build a gas station just because you want to. It's a complicated land tenure system. And the Samoans like it. They call it Fa'a Samoa. And they claim they've been living that way for thousands of years. And they don't want to abandon Fa'a Samoa and have to adopt and have to conform their government and their way of life to the provisions of the United States Constitution. And they see citizenship as requiring that. So they don't want to be citizens. And then...
Thank you for the explanation, because I was trying to figure out what they're, because I didn't see them on the same track as Guam, perhaps, as seeking self-determination, as it were.
Well, they kind of part of their argument is they've already made their self-determination. They're happy with the way things are.
Right.
And then there's a footnote to the story, and the footnote is that for naturalization purposes, American Samoans are treated differently from other non-U.S. citizens. If you are from American Samoa, you can come and go to the United States freely, with no restriction, no visa, whatever. And if you come to the United States and stay in the United States for 90 days, keep your nose clean, pay the fee, and file some papers, you can become a naturalized citizen. Whereas if you come from someplace else, first of all, you have to be an immigrant. You have to come and become a permanent resident, and it ordinarily takes you 5 years as a permanent resident to become a citizen. So Amata Radewagen's position is for American Samoans that really want to be citizens, it's not that hard. But we who are staying in Samoa don't want to be citizens, and it ought to be our call, not some judge in Utah.
So their vote is status quo.
Yes.
if they were having the same somewhat of a debate we're having here in Guam, their vote would be status quo.
Yeah, and there's kind of an interesting parallel there. You know, I keep hearing the independencia crowd saying, well, status quo is not decolonization, therefore that's not an option. And my question then is, well, if every single person on Guam didn't want independence or statehood and wanted Guam to remain as an unincorporated territory, that wouldn't be good enough. We'd have to force one of those other two statuses on the people against their will, which is kind of the Amata Radewagen approach. See what I mean?
I do see what you mean. So if I take it to the extent of where I think Neil Weir was going, he was almost angling towards Guam and maybe Guam's plight or other jurisdictions' plight in terms of wanting to kind of, the way I see it, wanting to kind of make the argument that citizenship is not on the table when discussing status.
Well, it's hard to know exactly what he is saying, but you know, you have to examine some of the things that he says and then consider what would happen if he's right. If he's right, and a court would decide that the insular cases are wrong and overturn Downs versus Bidwell, that would mean that the uniformity clause would apply to Guam. And that would mean no more duty-free shopping, no more GITA. Would probably mean that Guam, for all practical purposes, becomes an independent, as you were, a incorporated territory. There's another clause like the uniformity clause. We probably wind up paying federal income tax. I can't think of a greater disaster to befall us than to have Downs versus Bidwell overruled. And that's kind of what Weir is saying here in this article that I read. Hey, this is good news. That Samoa case means that maybe there's a chance that Downs versus Bidwell could be overruled. Maybe we can get rid of those insular cases. And that to me would be a disaster.
So, and if I follow right then, Bob, one of the things you've always said, regardless of what road we go down, as it stands now, an individual, regardless of what vote, even being non-binding and sent to Congress and for Congress to evaluate it, one currently born or naturalized as a citizen in Guam would basically have to renounce their citizenship in order to no longer be a U.S. citizen, correct?
That's right. He would have to go to a United States consulate. And you can only find United States consulates in foreign countries. He'd have to go to a consulate, and then he'd have to fill out some papers. He'd be interviewed by a consular official, and he'd sign some papers renouncing his American citizenship. And it's not easy. Lee Harvey Oswald tried to do it in Russia, the Soviet Union, and wasn't able to do it, but he tried. So it's not an easy thing to do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Bob, after listening to all of this and listening to the case, I would tell you one thing. The best Christmas present I would give myself is not buying an insurance policy I don't need.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, Chris. Very good way to look at it.
So I'm not going to cheerlead for something that makes me something I already am.
Exactly. It's just kind of like those, is it Liberty Insurance where, you know, they do some interviews in front of the Statue of Liberty. We won't sell you something you don't need.
I'm not buying.
Okay, Chris. Thanks a lot. Merry Christmas.
Have a great day, Bob. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the show.
Okay. One more break here.
A diamond ring turns into a black pearl and hangs shimmering in the sky.
Join 93.3 The Point for a spectacular celestial event. On the evening of December 26th, a rare solar eclipse will take place just before sunset.
We see the sun's atmosphere, normally not visible.
Most of the sun will be blocked during the eclipse, leaving only a ring of fire visible, and we have the best seats and the safest way to watch it.
It's one of the great wonders of the solar system.
Join us at the Point Coffee Lounge at the Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort from 4 to 6 p.m. on December 26th. The first 100 guests will receive a pair of Eclipse viewing glasses, a complimentary glass of iced tea, and a coupon good for discounts at Sheraton's Surfers Point Bar or La Cascada Buffet Restaurant. Join us for the Point's 2019 Eclipse Viewing Party, December 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. at the beautiful Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort. Brought to you in part by Sheraton Laguna Guam Resort, Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro, and your sky watching friends at 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so that was the call to the post, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. We are now in the home stretch of Tall Tales. That means I've got about 8 minutes to go. And I noticed Jesse Limtiaco may have posted something on Facebook that will close out the show. This is classic Jesse Limtiaco. I would kind of classify it as a poor Guam comment. Poor Guam. You know, we've been so oppressed and victimized and taken advantage of. People should feel sorry for us. And here's what Jesse says. The United States decided Guam's political status and gave us no vote for POTUS. Well, the United States doesn't give you a vote for the President of the United States. You have to be a state in order to vote for President of the United States. And Guam is not a state. Guam is an unincorporated territory. It's sort of a sad story. I don't think it's a sad story, Jesse. I've made the point more often than not that in some respects being an unincorporated territory is a pretty good place for a small island way out in the Western Pacific to attain. Okay, I got a couple calls coming in here. I got our Carl and another Joe. Is this the same another Joe that's been on the Ferris wheel before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Carl, I'm going to let you get on the Ferris wheel first, and then I'll go to another Joe.
Okay, I'll try to keep it brief. I was wondering if you could comment on how, we didn't technically have a say, a plebiscite when our status was decided in 1950. But how much does it count for the fact that the people did not revolt? I mean, obviously in Hong Kong, you don't need a plebiscite to know that they're not happy with where they're headed.
Ironically, Carl, the people that live in Hong Kong are looking back at their colonial days. It's the good old days when they were still a British colony, and there's no great public outcry saying we want to go back to our roots. We want to be Chinese.
Yeah, and we did not have that mass revolt. The Chamorros are not passive. I mean, I saw a pictures of them revolting when they got upset about George Tweed and what he wrote in his book. They knew how to make protest signs. So we saw none of that, and I take that as sort of an unofficial plebiscite, saying, yeah, our representatives have have negotiated this. We kind of like it, uniting with the most powerful, prosperous nation on the face of the earth. Anyway, I just thought I'd drop that in, and I'll listen to your comments offline. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, Carl. So another Joe, if you want to call back in, I can still squeeze you in before the close of the show. If not, I'll go back to what Jesse's saying here. He's saying 120 years and counting. Well, yeah, it's been 122 years since the Spanish-American War, and Guam has really had a tough time. Guam is one of the poorest islands in the Pacific, right? It's right down there with Vanuatu and Chuuk. No, Guam has the highest standard of living at any island in the Pacific. That's just probably an accident, right? Okay, let's see here. I got a call coming in from another Joe. Okay, another Joe, go ahead.
All right, I'll squeeze it in.
All right.
So I was going to say, if American Samoa has a case to be made because of their traditional land laws, maybe we have something to go on there for Guam, because really what it is whatever we identify as the so-called Chamorro culture, they're afraid it's going to extinct. And so you can say, hey, what do you need for a culture? Well, they emphasize for I don't know how many decades now, we need to protect our language. So you're teaching everyone the language. What if that's not the language they want to maintain? They can learn it in school. So then what's the next thing you need? Well, people need a land. So if we can follow what the American Samoans are doing and have something similar, we might have something there for Chamorros here in Guam. But other than that, I was going to say, man, wow, that sounds like a delicious coconut, spongy coconut.
Samoa, yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's what we call the spongy part of the coconut when you get sold, right? Delicious.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for your time there, Kebab, and Merry Christmas to you.
Same to you, another Joe. So, as far as land is concerned, when there were hearings for the Organic Act, our representative, Mr. Wampat, said he didn't want to have any kind of protection for Chamorro land tenure like they have in the Northern Marianas. And well that he did, because if you want to put a brake on progress, just do something that makes your land inalienable. It means you can't get a mortgage, you can't sell it, whatever. So that train has left the station a long time ago, whereas in American Samoa, they've been on that train even after they asked the United States to come in and take them over back in 1900. I went into that the other day in the program. So back to Jesse's hard time story here. 122 years and counting. The case for independence is mounting. Well, from what I hear from some people, you really should go for independence, because you aren't going to be able to get what you want as part of the American system. When you rebel against a voting rights case and what amounts to an equal protection case, when you say it's just not right that everybody gets to vote here on Guam, then maybe you should be independent. Because as an independent country, you could have a statute that says only Chamorros get to vote. And only Chamorros can own land. And only Chamorros can park in front of the governor's office or whatever. Anyhow, that's it for today. And I guess I've said it before, but it is Christmas, so I'll say it one more time. To all of those out there in our international radio listening audience, on behalf of the Real Joe Cruz and myself, Merry Christmas.